everyone, my name is Devon Koch. I am a senior here at Gunn High School. If you read anything about me on the official TEDxGunnHighSchool pamphlet or website, it says I'm a videographer and director and editor. While that's true, that has nothing to do with what I'm going to be talking about today. What I want to be talking about today is cycling. Cycling is something I've been doing since freshman year. I started cycling because in college at the University of Texas at Austin, my mom was a cyclist, and after she purchased a bike and after I watched her, I decided I should get into the sport too. So after cycling around here locally in the Bay Area, going up Old Lahonda Road, maybe to the beach and back, I really want to do something more. And I'd heard from a friend on a soccer team that there's a program called Overland. Overland is a group based out of Williamstown, Massachusetts, and its primary goal is to serve high school students who want to do long-term biking trips, hiking trips, and service trips. So between my sophomore and junior years, summer 2010, I did a bike trip from Seattle to San Francisco. This is me finishing at the Golden Gate Bridge with 10 other high school students I'd never met before, along with 2 other college seniors who led the trip. This was about 1,000 miles and it took us 4 weeks to do it. And if you do the math, it comes to about 40 to 50 miles a day. And while it was extremely fun, I really wanted to do something else because it was an amazing experience, but I wanted to do something a lot bigger. So I heard from my friend Sam Hayward that a previous Gunn High School student, his name is Miles, he graduated from Gunn in 2010, and he had biked with his dad from Boston to San Francisco when he was between his junior and senior years. And so I talked to him about it, and I was really intrigued by the idea. And I figured, okay, so Miles, you did this. You've had experience with this. What is one thing that you wish you would have done differently on this trip? And what he said was he wanted to create a journal. And so what I ended up doing was creating a blog. And it's called justbiking.blogspot.com. I came up with the URL in about 2 minutes. Anyway, when I was on my bike trip, I used my iPhone and a wireless keyboard to write entries with text, photos, and videos of what happened throughout the day. And I noticed that as I was going, I was writing more and more about what I was seeing and less about the physical aspect. So on my trip, if you were to, okay, let's say one of you wanted to bike across America, and in this day and age with Google, all these internet sites, you go on to Google, you say, I want to bike across America. And you come up to a website, it's called Adventure Cycling. Adventure Cycling is an organization. They've mapped out 40,000 miles worth of routes. And if you want to bike across America, there are 3 routes. There's a southern route, which goes from Savannah, Georgia to San Diego. There's another route which goes from Virginia to San Francisco. And there's a third route, which is the northern tier. It goes from Maine to Seattle. And I figured, like, I've never been to that part of the country. So I ended up going from Anacortes, Washington, which is right outside of Seattle, to Portland, Maine. The total trip was about 4,000 miles, and we covered 15 states. As you can see, these are some general calculations. We went about 82 miles a day, and the shortest day was about 40 miles, and the longest was 118. When I was on my trip, there were some minor obstacles. In Washington, on June 15th, there was snow. In Montana, there were thunderstorms. We encountered a few tigers and bears. I'll talk about that later. Tornadoes. In the summer of 2011, there was a flood in Minot, which wiped out tons of people's homes. Mosquitoes, and then I had 7 flat tires, which definitely was not very pleasant. This is my dad. The one problem I had going on this trip as a 17-year-old was that I'm a minor. And at the time, I wasn't really financially independent. I'm not saying I am now, but yeah. So I couldn't really figure out who I was going with because I needed someone to go with. And I asked some of my friends, and they all called me crazy. And fortunately, my dad had some time off at that time, and he was willing to go. With my mom's assistance of trying to persuade him to go, he ended up going. top left-hand corner is him at lunch on the first day. Yeah, that's a screenshot of one of the videos I was taking. It's pretty funny narration. You can check it out on the blog. The bottom left-hand corner is him on the second day. And on the fourth day is the picture on the right. And this is about 2 p.m. in the central Washington. We're going to do 2 passes, but he got too tired after one. So he ended up getting a massage, which I was like, okay, whatever. So as I'm talking about physical aspects, and now you have to go 82 miles a day, and it's crazy. Really, you get adjusted to that after the first week. Just like school, like let's say you just come off of summer break, and you're like really not looking forward to the first week of school, and the first week of school is hard because you have tests. But it's like this exact same thing where first part of school is like about the tests and work, and then as it goes on, it becomes about your friends and other things that are outside of school. And what I want to talk about today is the people who I met when I was stopped along the trip, and not exactly what I saw when I was actually riding. First person I want to talk about, her name is Barbara. Barbara lives on an unnamed road in a town in Montana which was unmapped. My dad and I were on the side of the road, stopped for a Snickers bar, and we saw a sign on the side of what looked like an abandoned house, which said, "Do not enter, the tigers will bite you." So what happens in Montana in very rural places, which we learned from her, was that people who retire import exotic animals on the internet and think that they can raise them. And what ends up happening is they're like, oh crap, we can't because it's a tiger from India. And they ended up releasing them in the wild, and it's a hazard. And Forest Service finds them, and what ends up happening is they have to put them down because they have nothing to do with it. But Barbara, who is a grandmother of 6 and retired, took it up upon her to raise tigers. There was a bear, which is about my height. We saw these deer. It was really, really crazy. So that's Barbara in Montana. This is Sandy. She is a hotel clerk in Wolf Point, Montana. On that day, there was a big tornado watch where if you look outside, it was extremely ominous, and camping was kind of out of the cards. And another thing I haven't mentioned is Wolf Point, Montana is just west of the North Dakota border, and just east of the North Dakota border is a town called Williston, which I'll talk about in a second. It's recently been in the news because of this thing. It's in the oil industry. It's called fracking. It's basically a new way of getting oil. And there's this huge oil boom going on in North Dakota, which in turn, in a 100-mile radius of Williston, there's no hotel rooms. And there's no hotel rooms in Montana, even though the oil boom is going on in North Dakota. And she let us stay in a room that was unavailable to the public, which was awesome. This is Brian, he's on the left. The other two are other cyclists we met along the way. Brian left his family in Utah to go work in Williston. He lives in a trailer park, and he sleeps in a tent. And this is his full-time job. And keep in mind, North Dakota in the winter gets to negative 40 degrees, which is crazy. This guy just wanted someone to talk to, and he went out to, he drove us, in which at that point, we hadn't been in a car in like 2 weeks. He gave us breakfast, really awesome experience. This guy, his name is Dusty. He lives in Minot. He had just lost his house in a flood 3 days before this picture was taken. Excuse me. And he offered some CO2 cartridges for us. This guy, Don, he was a retired military veteran, and he set up a bicycle bunkhouse specifically for people like me and my dad who are traveling across the country just for people to stay in. It was awesome. Michelle did our laundry for free. Dave and Becky let us stay in their home. We met them in a pizza shop. We had 20 miles to go to the next campsite, and Becky took it upon herself to let us stay in their house. When we were at Tim Hortons in New York, it's basically like Starbucks except for Canadians, this woman insisted that we have $10, and we were in no need of the money, but she was like, no, you have to have it. Butch is on the right, and Joyce is the woman in the middle. They let us stay in their house just like Dave and Becky. It was out of the kindness of their heart. And we were in Norwich, Vermont. We were in a Mexican restaurant, and they just said, here, have a free dinner. It was like $50 or something. It was crazy. This is Dr. Keltner. A little different. He was not on our trip. And Dr. Keltner works at the University of California at Berkeley, and he's a psychologist. And I saw a talk that he gave about 2 weeks ago, and he talked about forgiveness and trust. So here's a graph. On the left, it shows a percentage of people who trust other people in their country, and on the right are the countries. So you see the United States kind of in the middle. It's around 37%. And Norway, China, they're up there. I think this graph is false. Everyone in America, like, we're in Palo Alto. If I were biking on the street and like I ran into you for the first time, there was no way in hell that you would ever let me stay in your house. But most people in America are extremely nice and genuine. If you look at this graph, on the left, it shows what happens if someone's given $20 versus if they spent it for themselves or they spent it on others. And this is the change in their happiness over a day. So if you spend it on yourself, you'll become sad. So give money to people. The takeaway from this presentation that I want you to have, I mean, most of the time I haven't really been talking about biking or any physical aspects. I've been talking about people and people I've met. What I've learned about is humility, faith in humanity, trust, kindness, generosity, and charity. People did not have to do this for us. We were two foreigners to their land, and it was just completely out of their own hearts, and they were extremely nice, and we just met them that day. And just it's the true random act of kindness that made that trip. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions regarding the trip, just shoot them at me right now.
How did you start up conversations with these people? Like, did you meet them at restaurants? Like, how did you first start contact with them?
Okay, so when we pull into town, me being the 18-year-old, and I wanted to find a hotel, I'd get out my iPhone, and my dad being the baby boomer, he would be like, screw iPhones, I want to go talk to people and get to know people. So for the first half of the trip, I would be sort of reserved, and he would be the ones kind of making the introductions. He's done a lot of work in sales, so he's kind of used to that. And then over the course of the trip in the last half, I kind of worked myself up to talking to people. It's a good skill to have. Yeah.
You didn't plan any of your hotels before leaving?
So, as I said, if you want to bike across America, there is the Adventure Cycling Association, and they have very detailed maps which show restaurants, hotels, but we only made reservations for the first 2 days, and we just looked onwards. So yeah, there weren't really any plans. I'll take one more question.
What was the most weird experience you had?
Sorry?
What was the most weird experience you had?
Weird. I've already mentioned it. I probably said the tiger experience. That was out of this world. Actually, I'll take one more. Yeah. Stuff. Yeah, I didn't actually show you guys a picture. We carried all our stuff, so it was self-supported. I had a road bike with 2 panniers or saddlebags, and that had 2 pairs of clothes. It's not gross, trust me. And sleeping bag, tent, and basically all the bare necessities. We actually met one cyclist. He had just graduated from college. He was doing this trip the other way, but he was going on $10 a day, which is crazy. Yeah, so that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you very much.